Welcome back to another class of Python for app development. In this class, I'm going to show you everything you need to know from the start to the beginning about scroll view. In my previous class, I've shown you how you can create yourself up a stack layout. So in this class, I'm going to show you about the scroll view or so-called the scroll layout, which is going to help you to the interface of the app or the console. Well, you can see on most apps, you can scroll up and down, and we're going to create the same view or the same type of feature inside of our console or our app. So make sure not to skip any part because every part of this class is going to be very vital. And without any further ado, let's just open up our IDE, which is PyCharm, and start our coding. As you can see on my screen, we have opened up our say Python opened up. Now, one thing you are going to see over here is that we are not going to be customizing our main Python file because when you are trying to create up the scroll view, we do not need to customize anything over here. And it is also not turned as a class because as it is a feature inside our layout, we have to customize it inside the KV file, which is going to actually be interlooped with this one. And another thing which you have to know is that the scroll view example or the scroll view which you are creating on the app is also going to be stacked with keeping the base of the stack layout. So let's say I'm going to do is going to be creating a couple of space, and inside I'm going to put in, let's say, scroll view example. Well, this is just going to be a definition. So I'm going to put in, let's say, at the rate. I'm going to put in scroll view. So there we go. We have scroll view. We're not going to be needing the example because we have already defined it. Now here, I'm going to put in a colon. Now inside my colon here, I'm going to put in stack layout example. So if I put in layout, stack layout example, here what we can do is that we are going to put in stack layout because we are going to be using that stack layout as the base. So here we have stack layout example. I'm going to put in a space for the line again. And here I'm going to do is going to be try playing it. So first off, let's just put in scroll view example. And now if I try playing it out, you'll basically see it is going to show me the same type of method, but we do not want that. So another thing, what we're going to do over here is that we're going to change out the sizes because we do not need the padding. So I'm going to just, in case, let's just stop them or postpone these actions just by putting up the hash commands. And now if I play it, you can see all of these are available. Another thing, what we're going to do over here is that I'm going to put in left to right, which is going to help us to understand it a bit more better. So let's play it out. And there we go. This is how it should look. So as we have our whole layout, but we need it to be scrolled because now you can see that we cannot see the whole thing. We basically have to increase up the size to check out the whole thing and to make it all visible. So one thing we're going to do over here is that we are going to be creating a layout which is going to help us to scroll up and down. But even though this is going to be static right now, so we have to also define Python or give that specific value to Python so that it shows us that specific example. So for that, I'm going to create another space right down over here, stack layout. And here I'm going to put in the size value. So if I put in the size value, and I'm going to put in, let's say, size hint because we are now working on our KV file. So the size hint is going to be, let's say I'm going to put in the whole value, which is 100%, comma, and the width or the height is going to be none because we do not want any specific value for our height. So as we have our size value, now we also have to define our height in an individual way. So if I put in height, and if I just put in, let's say, 3000 or 3300 and play out the whole thing, and you'll basically see now we will be able to scroll it down. Okay. So even if we increase or decrease it up, we will still be able to scroll up and down. And now as we have 3000, it's going to be a lot more. But one thing you can see, this is working the opposite way. Okay. So we just have to basically drag it up and down, and we can also use our scroll key to go up and down. Okay. Now, one thing you can see over here is that we've used height. So what if we use it inside of our sizing? So if I put in one over here, let's just say space one and play out the whole thing, it's going to not work. It's because when you're using size int, it's only going to take that specific file value, not the file value, but exact size value of the width, but not the height. So for that case, you have to put a none value over here, and you have to work with height colon, and then you have to put in that specific display pixel. Let's say maybe I want it 1000, and if I put in play, it's going to display 1000 pixels. But now you can see it is not going down anymore. So let's just try, let's say 1500 display pixel, play out the whole thing, and you can see now it is working quite well. Okay, so this is basically how you are going to create yourself of the scroll view in, Python and also the KV file. And another thing which you can do is that you can use up the self, let's say, which is basically the self minimum height. You can try that out too. So if you want to do that, you can also try check it out on your own. So let's just put in the command. So if I just take this out and instead of this, I'm going to put in the self command. So if I put in self and then put in dot minimum, and then you're going to put in, let's say, self minimum height. Now, if I play it out, it might not be the scroll view, but it's going to end up on the place where it is actually ending up the number. So this is very advantageous. So if I just put in, let's say, maybe 200 over here, and it's going to just basically, let's say it's just going to scan up the data on where it is ending, and that is the exact place where it's going to end. So if I just increase up the number over here, you can still see it is now ending on the widget or the button where it is ending up. Okay, so this is how you are going to create yourself of the scroll view. If you did not understand properly, so I would like to explain it again. So first thing and the foremost thing, when you are trying to make a scroll view, you do not have to create a class in the Python file, because this is a feature and this is what you are representing inside of your app. So you do not have to create a class, and you do not have to bypass it using the Kiwi UIX file or even import it. So what you're going to basically do is that you have to put it inside of the KV file and start off with a definition. And inside of the definition, you also have to bypass it inside of the KV file and use the stack layout or button layout, whatever you want. But I would suggest you go for stack layout because it's going to be a lot more easier. If you try using the grid layout or maybe an anchor layout, you might basically see it might not show you the way you want it to be. So you can also try it on your own. Let's say if I maybe put grid example, so Control C, and if I just put in grid layout example, and now if I play it out, it's just going to give me something like this. You will be able to scroll, but it's not going to define, or it's not going to show you all the data that you need, but obviously it will be very scrollable, so you don't have to worry about that. You can see when I'm just scrolling my mouse button, it is just trying to go down. And now if I just go off to the grid layout option, you can see there we go. Now, what we basically have to do is we have to create a lot of these buttons. So if I just put in Control C, hit on enter, and if I just put in this button over here, there we go. And then I have to put in more button, Control V. And now if I play it out, you'll basically see a lot of these buttons will be created inside of it. Okay. And then you'll be able to customize it the way you want to also. Okay. So you can see we have 3 columns. So if I put in 7 columns and 9 of rows. So if I play it out, you'll basically see this is how it should look like. But one thing you can see now, I cannot scroll it anymore because it has exceeded up the limit. And now if I just put it just like this, it's going to be like this. Okay. It's just going to take up the space and just going to reduce up the size. So only way you can make it very advanced and also very, let's say, dynamic and static at the same time is just by using the, let's say, stack layout. Okay. So when you're using stack layout, it's just going to be very scrollable. It's going to be very dynamic. and also it's going to be, let's say, very, accessible and user friendly. Okay. So now you know how you'll be able to create a scroll view layout in Python. Okay. Now, another thing which I will show you in my next class is about the page layout. So that is also going to be a bit confusing for people who are kind of new to it. So I would suggest you make sure not to skip any part. And thank you for watching this video up till the very end, and hope you understood about everything in this class. If you still have any confusion or any question about any part of this lesson, feel free to ask me anytime. I'm always there to help you out. And obviously, after each classes, I would suggest you try out these commands or try out these codes on your own. It will help you a lot, and it will just give you clear and vivid idea about how you can actually get the outcome and get an interface which looks just like this. Okay, so without any further ado, let's move on to our next class of Python for app development.